So we're talking love stories, and I do want to talk about them, but I want us to think this morning about what the story of love is in our own lives. What is love's story in your life? Because I'd argue that it's not the same for everybody, and that it's something unique in and through you. Although you may go through a lot of the emotions that everybody seems to perhaps go through, whatever state of relationship you may or may not be in, love is present with all of us, and thus it, in its infinite nature, must express itself uniquely. So, what is love's story in your life? Janice is sharing, I'm sorry. Touch her feather. Do you have a favorite love story in a movie? Anybody? Favorite love story? What do we have? The Notebook. Dwayne.
Love Actually.
Ghost. Oh, you switched from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Good job. Love Actually. Vashti.
Must love dogs.
Must love dogs. All right.
Lady and the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp. All right. A lot of animal-themed ones.
Eat, pray, love.
Eat, pray, love. All right.
When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally. Now that's an important one to me. That's one of my favorites. And I love When Harry Met Sally because it's not two people meeting an ideal, and you know if there was a sequel, it would be a totally different movie. It'd all go to hell. You know. I love When Harry Met Sally because they grow up over time. What else? Richard. Gone with the Wind. Slap. We know what kind of love Richard's into. Linda in the back there. The Way We Were. Yes, Kathleen. Out of Africa. Marilyn. You've Got Mail. Sleepless in Seattle. All right. Stephen.
Sense and Sensibility.
Sense and Sensibility. All right. Ghost. Okay, we had Ghost. That's a good one too.
A love story.
Yes, an ideal romance with someone who doesn't exist. Right, so we have one more. Dana, what were you pointing to? Oh, yes, Janie.
Somewhere in time.
Huh?
Somewhere in time.
Somewhere in Time. All right. Good. I'm surprised. I also love Annie Hall. That's another favorite of mine. I love it because they break up at the end, and that's a good story. It leaves us in the mystery of love. And I don't know if you get our church newsletter, but I shared one of my favorite quotes about love, or at least ensuing it, from Woody Allen, and it's in our newsletter. He says in Annie Hall, he says, of love, it reminds me of that old joke, a guy walks into a psychiatrist's office and says, "Hey doc, my brother's crazy. He thinks he's a chicken." Then the doc says, "Why don't you turn him in?" Then the guy says, "I would, but I need the eggs." I guess that's how I feel about relationships, Alan adds. They're totally crazy, irrational, and absurd, but we keep going through it because we need the eggs. Now, Josh said, but my favorite romantic movie is The Princess Bride, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, and kind of use loosely, I thought it would be fun, William Goldman's book that the movie's based on. And how many people have seen that movie or read the book before? Quite a few of you, but you don't have to buy the book, you can go see the movie. It's fun to watch. I like it because it really speaks to love as a spiritual power, and it really teaches us that if we are committed wholeheartedly to true love, that love's promise to us is to pull us through any obstacle that might be there if we are committed without betraying that truth, that true commitment to love. Now, mind you, I think we learn in everyday life that the same love that can take you into a relationship can be the same one that takes you out of it. So it's not about commitment to a particular relationship as much as it is to love itself. Now, how about a real life love relationship? So you have people that you know that you love their love stories. So people go, Janie just shared, I love Janie and Annie are one of my favorite couples because of the way they can both be incredibly prickly yet devoted to one another at all times. I love Paul and Yvonne Woods here because they go out of their way to honor each other on all sorts of regular basis. I love my parents who are celebrating 40 years of marriage next year. And I think they loved each other from the start, but they taught me so much about how love is a practice and you build it more and more and deeper over time. That love is a practice, it's not a given. Sylvia?
Juanita and Jim?
Juanita and Jim, yes. I love how they continually share that they're each other's greatest teachers, for better and for worse. Sometimes, great ways. Anybody else?
Bob and Susan.
Bob and Susan, yes. Sherman, Peggy and Dawn, yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Tom and Lindy. Okay, well, all church members so far. Okay, we can go out and beyond too.
The Johnsons.
The Johnsons, okay. Well, anyone who's a couple here, we love you. You're awesome. You're fantastic. Jeannie, do you have one? Oh, Alan, I'm sorry. Ah, good job. Yes. Next Sunday sermon is the art of brownie points. How's that? Our church is all about love, and it doesn't have to be just in a romantic sense. There's love that happens with our children, there's love that happens with our family, there's love that happens with our fellow men and women, and ultimately there's a spiritual love. And every great spiritual teacher there ever was, from Plato to the author of the Gospel of John, to Rumi, to Ernest Holmes, all teach us that love is God, and God is love. And our deepest and most profound love is always in our relationship with that divine presence, whether it's something we view outside or inside of us, like Daniel was referring to, or it's something that we touch in the heart connection with people that we love the most. I love something Emmett Fox said, and I really invite you to think whether you really believe this or not. He says, "There is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer, no disease that enough love will not heal, no door that enough love will not open, no gulf that enough love will not bridge, no wall that enough love will not throw down, no sin that enough love will not redeem." Do you believe that? Did I get a no? It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world. Do you believe that? If only you could love enough, you'd be the most powerful being in the world. I at least know that I have faith and believe in love as the most transformative power that I've ever encountered, or that I've ever come to know, and that I'm always learning more about what it is. And that's the other thing I love about love, is it always has a story. And why does love always have a story? Because you don't have love without relationship. Relationship with partner, relationship with friend, relationship with ourselves, relationship with spirit. Love is the story that takes place through connection. And thus, heading back to the central question today, what is love's story in your life? Just imagine for a moment that you were freed from body and name, freed just momentarily from the names of people you love and the significant moments, and just say you were soul to soul with a presence greater and grander than you are, yet which always knew and held the real truth about you. And it asked you in your lifetime, what did you learn about love? What do you know now that you did not know before you began your journey? How did you evolve in love, but even more importantly, how did love evolve in you? We asked the question in our newsletter about what love's story is in your life, and I'd love to hear from you. Email or call me, because it'll give me sermon material. I can spend more time celebrating or grieving the Super Bowl, depending on whether the Broncos win or lose. But one of our congregants, Donna Gillespie, thank you so much for sharing. Donna shared with me, true, real love to me is always unconditional. She says, love is a verb and not a noun, an action and not just a word. She went on to tell me, short and sweet, but took years to learn. I'm going to take that as the title of my memoirs, Donna. Short and sweet, but took years to learn. And that's so much the truth about love at times, isn't it? And I know that so much of the story of love in my life is learning to overcome limitations. And that those limitations are not necessarily set upon me by life, but by myself and my misunderstandings about love. I love something, I've shared it over the years of this church, from that Hazrat Inayat Khan said. He said, he's a Sufi teacher, he said, to an angelic soul, love means glorification. To a genie soul, love means admiration. To a human soul, love means affection. To an animal soul, love means passion. He goes on to say, one need not fall in love, one must rise through love. I like that as a statement about perhaps all of our stories of love. That it's not the stories of us bumbling into and falling in love. It's the story of love's evolution in who we are. Did we see it? Did we catch it? Did we answer its call? And that's often been the story of love in my life, is that I've had clear ideas about what it is. It's an object to attain. It's an ideal. It's a reflection of what I want in my life. It's someone doing everything for me that I want them to do. And it's taken me a long time to learn that that's not love. That's a preconceived idea of love, which is, if anything in my life, has kept me from love. There's been moments in breakups and endings, and love is an important part of endings as it is beginnings, so there's lots of beginnings in love. But so many times I've been near breakups or upset or angry and said to myself, this is not love. But the truth was, is right there was the greatest call to love that there would be. To forgive someone, to let someone go, to forgive myself, to accept myself, to trust the process. Love has always called me to recognize that real love is answering a call to serve something greater than myself. That's a fancy spiritual way of saying getting out of the idea of love being an expression of my own reflection, getting out of my own egotistical aspect of love. In our book of the month, The Princess Bride, the star of the book is Princess Buttercup, who's the most beautiful potential bride around. And William Goldman tells us about all the women of the land who were the most perfect woman before there was Princess Buttercup. And one of them is the story of Adela, and I think it speaks well to this idea of rising in love. And she is out in the town area, and she's got a lot of suitors, 105 of them to be exact. And one of them tells her that she's just perfect, and he has to have her. So she considers that for a while, and she gets home and she begins to look in the mirror from sundown all the way until the sun rises, and she inspects every aspect, every pore of her being, and finally she decides that through no fault of her own, she is indeed perfect. Not a part of me, she says to herself, could stand improving. How lucky I am to be perfect and rich and sought after and sensitive and young and... young? The mist was rising around her as Adela began to think, well, of course, I'll always be sensitive. I'll always be rich. But I don't quite see how I'm going to manage to always be young. And when I'm not young, how am I going to stay perfect? And if I'm not perfect, well, what else is there? There was no question that she was not quite as happy as she had been. She had begun to fret. The first worry lines appeared within a fortnight. The first wrinkles within a month. And before the year was out, creases abound. She married soon thereafter the selfsame man who accused her of sublimity and gave him merry hell for many years. Adela's sorrow is a perfect example for any of us who get caught up in the appearance of love or the reflection of love, that if we hang on to it too dearly, we miss out on what love really is, because love has to evolve. It can be at a place of admiration, like Inayat Khan says, but eventually the highest love is that love of glorification, of truly giving ourselves to that cause, of caring about somebody, of helping somebody. We hear, or I've heard in the Gospel of, not the Gospel of Paul, but Paul, the guy who wrote the letters. Gosh, come to my Bible wisdom class. But we have those famous words from Paul that many of you heard have heard at weddings. Love is patient and love is kind. Love doesn't boast. And in my experience, it's the absolute opposite. Yeah. Love is absolutely impatient. Love is totally unkind. Love is incredibly demanding. But what it demands is my kindness. is my patience. Love is not a pretty picture. But for me, it's always learning to answer that call. Not for my own good, but for love itself. There's a great reading from Alan Watts on marriage, which I think is a little ironic because we should not take advice from Alan Watts on marriage. He is one who I think had scars from the rice marks all over his face because he'd been married so many times. But every once in a while, couples will let me share this at their wedding because I do think it's quite powerful. He says, "What I am about to say may at first sound depressing and even cynical, but I think you will not find it so in practice. There are 3 things I would have you bear in mind. The first is that as you now behold one another, you are probably seeing each other at your best. Do not therefore go into marriage with projects for improving each other. Growth may happen, but it cannot be forced. The second has to do with emotional honesty. Never pretend to a love which you do not actually feel, for love is not ours to command. For the same reason, do not require love from your partner as a duty. For love given in this spirit does not ring true, and gives no pleasure to the other. The third is that you do not so cling to each other as to commit mutual strangulation. You are not each other's chattels, and you must so trust your partner as to allow full freedom to be the being that he and she is. If you observe these things, your marriage will have surer ground than can be afforded by any formal contract or promise, however solemn and legally binding." So I like to get to read this at weddings, and getting married this year, it's interesting to consider that quote for myself, and I'm looking forward to getting married to a beautiful woman. And sometimes people go, "Well, why are you friends with her? Well, why this one? Why are you marrying April?" And so I kind of make a list in my mind because I struggled a little bit at first. Well, she's such a kind, caring person. She's an awesome mom. We've known each other for years and years and have built up this great story together. She's got a great heart. We like a lot of the same things. And yet as I review this list, I look, none of those is really a reason to marry somebody. And as I meditate or contemplate it or freak out about it a little further, what I come to really authentically realize is that the only reason that I'm marrying her is because of her. Because she's her and because of love. That love is the only reason to do something like that. And although all those things are true, they may in some cases not always remain true. And yes, marriage and relationships involves agreements and partnership and trust, and that's all important, but not love. The call to love is for love itself, and if it's for any other reason, we're going to get trapped. We're going to get lost, and we're bound to run into some disappointment. The Princess Bride, the movie, for those of you who've seen it or read the book, they're almost the same. The biggest difference, however, is that in the movie you have Columbo, Peter Falk, reading to Fred Savage. I have to point out, too, that it's interesting that Rob Reiner both made When Harry Met Sally and The Princess Bride, so one of my most influential teachers on love is Meathead from All in the Family. Side fact. But in the movie, you have the grandpa reading to the young boy, played by Fred Savage. But in the book, you have a narrator who's not a happy man, and he's actually finding, it's fictional, an old book, The Princess Bride, from his past, and he's rewriting it. And the reason he is because he's miserable in his own life. He's not happy in his marriage, he's not happy with himself, he's not happy as a parent and has struggles with his own son. And he's battling that. And so what he's trying to do is to retell this story, to remember this truth that he used to remember about love that he had forgotten. Take the title words, True Love and High Adventure, the subtitle of the book. I believed in that once. I thought my life was going to follow that path. Prayed that it would. Obviously it didn't, but I don't think there's adventure left anymore. Nobody takes out a sword nowadays and cries, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And true love, you can forget about that too. I don't know if I love anything anymore beyond the porterhouse at Peter Luger's and the cheese enchilada at El Corredor's. Sorry about that Helen, who was his wife at the time. So we have a book about a man who's telling a story about love that he now considers a myth. And let's remember that Joseph Campbell defined a myth as other people's religion. But the importance of a myth is that it can sometimes point to us to what real life sometimes can't. Those higher truths about what love really is, why we're really here, what these connections are really for. And so this idea of growing in love in our lives, this idea of what is love's story in my life, in your life, is a question of, are we willing to continue our growth in love? Because if your idea of love is the shredded beef burrito at El Burrito Jr., you might be in trouble. If it's the Friday night because the work week's almost done, if it's staying up to watch a good TV show, if it's a margarita at the Yucatan, whatever it may be, it's not that those things aren't lovely, but they are probably blocking you from that call to a deeper love, be it in your relationship with your partner, in your singleness towards yourself, in your family, with your God, with whomever it is that may be around you. The call to love is always present, but the answer isn't. And that's something we have to learn to cultivate in our own being. So just taking a prayerful moment in closing, and I'll invite Daniel back up to the stage. Let us just, again, ask ourselves in a quiet moment, what is love's story in my life? What is my call to love? How am I being called to be loved and receive love? How can I best be and express and receive a greater love, not just tomorrow, but right now in this today? And just know, single or married, widowed or widower, happily alone, or thrilled to be with everybody, that love doesn't care about what your relationship on Facebook status says. It doesn't care what a certificate says. It only cares about the divine connection which we have with those who are present physically and those who are not. The question is how will we best love those who we care about and honor that presence of love in each of us today? And so it is.